Hello and welcome to Mind Shifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour. And today is Tuesday, January 28th, 2025. And we're grateful, as always, to everyone who's joining us here today, whether you're listening live or through the archives, as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, the most effective, efficient, and accessible tools I've ever encountered. These tools are available absolutely free through the tireless efforts of Dr. Michael and Jeannie Rice on the website at whyagain.org. If you go to that website and click on the two words that say Start Here in the upper left-hand corner, it will take you to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Rice's book. His book is titled, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And that chapter of the book contains a narrative description and explanation of the primary tool in this work. That tool is called the Reality Management Worksheet, sometimes called the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet. And it's a tool I've been using to great effect for over 20 years now to improve the quality of my life and most of my relationships, and to turn any negative emotional experience I have into part of the infallible guidance system that each and every one of us has been given. You can also download the actual worksheet process itself. It's a simple PDF file. Click the link, download it, print it off, copy it as often as you'd like, and use it over and over again absolutely free. You can also download a whole host of audio files of shows just like this one where people have been stepped through that worksheet process. And if you choose to listen to them even repeatedly, they can serve as a powerful tutorial for you to help you get maximum benefit from these tools in the shortest amount of time possible. You can also go to your app store and type in the three words Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness. And if you choose to do that before you're done typing the word forgiveness, you'll see the glowing heart icon. If you tap on that, it will let you download a completely free and private app that contains the Reality Management Worksheet. It contains an abbreviated version of that worksheet process, and it contains a copy of the Dragon Klingon game, which is a wonderful way to introduce these tools to even younger audiences. We hope people do all of that soon and often, primarily because it tends to improve the quality of people's lives the more they actively apply these tools in their lives. And secondarily, because it tends to prompt comments, questions, answers, and testimonials. And if you have any of those to share with us, we'd appreciate you doing so by giving us a call at 563-999-3581. And there I am on autopilot. That's not the number to call. We are on Needle Live. So you can either email me at tjh@mindshifters-academy.org, or you can email Jeannie Rice at jeanie@yagain.org. That's whyagain.org. And if we get a question or a comment from you, we'll address it on the internet show, and then as time allows, send you a notification so you can listen back and figure out what day and time that occurred so you can listen back to the archives for your feedback or input. And we greatly appreciate when people do that. It just makes it so much easier for us to live into our intention with this work. The intention we have with this work is to be a service, and that's just so much easier to do when we know how these things are landing for you. If you're listening to us on the web at live.needl.com/mindshiftersradio, and you would like to drop us a comment or talk to us directly, you'll need to download the Needle app from your app store. Needle, N-E-D-L, AI for radio search, radio tuning. And if you go there, download the app, sign in, it will give you the option to either type in a comment or raise a hand and say, I'd like to talk live. And according to what we've experienced, if you call in to talk live, you'll even be louder than the host because of the way the technology is set up right now. Hopefully I'm coming through loud and clear and you can hear me, but you'll also be able to hear yourself if you call in using the Needle app. And as always, we're grateful whenever anybody chooses to share their comments or questions with us or speak to us live, because it just makes it much more likely that the show that's getting recorded is going to be a highlight show. It's going to be much more likely that people say, hey, I want to listen to that again, because it's the synergy it's the interaction between your mind and your desire to learn and grow and the others energetically who are listening and whoever the host happens to be. It's that kind of an alchemy, if you will, that produces the shows that people want to listen to again and again. And today's a Tuesday, so there will be a support group tonight. On Tuesdays and Thursday nights, there is an offering we've been doing for a lot of years, a little over 20 years now for the Tuesday group, and over 10 years for the Thursday group. And it's available free through Zoom. All you have to do is go to the mindshiftersacademy.org website and choose the login material for either Tuesday or Thursday, and we'd be happy to have you join us. And I just turned on the microphone for Susan Bingham. You're in the air.
Hey, hi, Dr. Tim. I listened to your podcast, Ellenhorn, early this morning, and I just wanted to say that I've never thought in the way that he thinks about people who get stuck early and stay stuck because they just can't accept that they are acceptable. And he put it a different way. And if you remember how he put it, that would be great.
It's not ringing a bell right now.
Oh, okay. Let's see if I can dredge it up. Well, for instance, if someone who has been through some sort of negative experience repeatedly when they were small, he said they may get to the point where they don't believe or cannot metabolize a kind gesture or word from someone else. They don't believe it, or they don't have the brain cells, or is that ringing any bells?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and the other thing is that they can metabolize a little bit of it, but then in the past that's always been paired with the pain of the loss or someone betraying them or abusing them, and so they shut down from the loving connection because they've been trained to associate that with additional pain. And so if it happens in the extreme, then you have people that literally run from respect and affection and connection and intimacy as though it's acid burning their skin.
And that's because they basically cannot trust anybody or any positive input.
Or they're trusting their past experience, which it taught them that this isn't safe.
Yeah.
That this always leads to a deeper pain that isn't worth it.
Right. Well, I am going to send that interview to 2 people at least. I've got a 2-person list so far. I have a friend whose daughter has been diagnosed. She's 27, for years running under the diagnosis of bipolar. And the natural kind of organic way that he coaxes people away from the diagnosis, away from believing bad things or negative things about themselves, getting them reintegrated as kind of a mimicking normal social situations until the person gets to trust those and is comfortable. I love that idea. It's amazing to me that he finds workers that will, for instance, accompany someone on a bus to a concert or
a job interview or their actual job, etc.
Or work with them through writing an application. It's like the work of a loving parent.
Yes, except that it's done by people who have master's degrees and training in other levels of clinical acumen.
Right. Anyway, it's worth listening to. And then I wanted to give a testimonial, a rather strange, amazing thing. Or do you want to keep talking about?
No, go right ahead.
When I was pregnant with my son, and I had a tiny daughter, she was 2.5 years old, Tim and I were involved with, it's like the Episcopal Church of India. They had sent missionaries to New York City and other major cities to set up centers where they would teach about the ancient Hindu scriptures. And Tim and I had both had negative experiences in the church. And I won't go into what they were. You've heard some of that. So for 10 years, he and I were students of these teachers. One was an old Swami who's quite famous, who has since died. In fact, they've both died. And his protege, who was also a wonderful teacher. And our children, their first exposure to anything religious was through them. They heard talks. They listened to many Hindu devotional songs. Jonathan was so tiny, we would bring him to the center and put him in the top drawer of a bureau and leave the drawer open. He hardly moved because he was a newborn, and he's the amazing one in some ways, because even though when we left, he wasn't very old, he was deeply infused with that culture. In some ways, we never became Hindus. We never joined there formally or went through initiation rites, although we got a mantra, practice meditation. When I was pregnant with him, I was very depressed and heading for bed one night at a retreat center where we were. And I said a prayer to the equivalent of Mary in the Christian tradition. Ramakrishna had a wife. It wasn't a consummated relationship at all. They were like spiritual partners. And I prayed to her because she was sort of my chosen ideal. And I went to bed and I had an amazing vision that she brought to me. And I always, the effects of that lasted for 3 days, and the effects of it are still with me in some ways, although I can't get back there. Complete peace. I've talked about this before on the radio show. But here's little Jonathan in the womb, the beneficiary of that dream and the well-being that was the result of it. Well, as you know, I've been worried about him for years, and he's left his practice of being a urologic and abdominal surgeon at age 51, and he is sailing. He is now with his cousin, and he's just gotten back on the boat, and they're sailing in the open seas down past St. Augustine and further south eventually to the Bahamas. And he called today, and he said, I am free when I'm on this boat. I hope I can bring it offshore. I have never felt so excited about my life or so happy. And I even hesitated to tell you because I thought it might be just a flash in the pan. But it's been a month now. They've been sailing for a month. He said, at worst, I'm content and peaceful. At best, I'm just so excited about my life, loving nature. They have dolphins swimming beside the boat sometimes, leaping up and playing. It's amazing. But anyway, he said he has started meditating. And he hasn't ever been particularly drawn to church. He's very God, aware that God could be the answer to everything, but he didn't know how to get there. And I said, what are you meditating on? And he said, Holy Mother, Ramakrishna's consort. I lie down, I imagine that she's gently stroking my hair and telling me that I'm a good man. And he said, the feeling of love I get from that and the feeling of well-being is massive. It changes my body even. I do it for only about 15 minutes at a time, once or twice a day. And I'm going to continue doing it. And so I guess now I'm winding up my story just to think that here I am going through my journals from years and years, and every day practically I'm writing in there, Jonathan isn't well today. I'm praying for him. I'm trying to let him be who he is. I did the Byron Katie thing. If he's doing exactly what he needs to be doing right now, it's all okay. So it seems as if a prayer is being answered in a way I could never have imagined. And the root is prenatal, really. He was very small when we left that center. And went back, we became Episcopalians. And he sang in a boys' choir. And all of that was infused in him too. But what does he do? He goes back to this very early stuff. And that's where the Ellenhorn comments got to me, is we're entrusted with these completely open, receptive, tiny people. And we've got to be much more aware and careful than most of us are. We're too young usually to have kids, and we mess up terribly. So anyway, I don't know where you want to, or if you want to say anything about that, but it just seemed...
So
yeah.
Where's the testimonial in this?
I guess I don't know, it's just a report. I don't know what it is. No, I guess there's no testimonial. It's a report, that's it.
Well, I'm delighted for you and him that he's finding this adventure, that it is resonating well with him, that he's feeling like he's getting a lot out of it, and life improving energies coming from it. That's delightful.
Thanks. Sorry, I don't know what else to say. Maybe it's not that interesting, but I thought it was.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I just thought you were leading to since you started by saying it's a testimonial, I thought you might be wanting the nudge to remember to put the testimonial piece in there. But that's fine. It's just the lovely story. And I think that, it's prompted by what you listened to in the interview with Dr. Ross Ellenhorn, is that we are not independent of our origins, and the energies that we've been through in our lives, they're still with us, and what we make them mean is important to us. So if we are willing to explore that, and often, as Dr. Ellenhorn talks about, with the support, the social connection, then we benefit greatly by, the social support and connection is healing in nature, which is why so much of his work is about trying to keep people connected to their social work and family networks while they get assistance or support in dealing with any difficulties that might be listed as, mental or emotional.
He keeps them connected to their families and their environments and nature in ways that being in a mental hospital and taking pills would never do.
Right. Well, it's in ways that being in a mental hospital and taking pills strips away from them.
Yeah, that's true. The other amazing thing, going back to my son, is on his way down sailing, he stopped at a marina in Jacksonville where my daughter lives with her husband and kids. And they have never really gotten along. They had a fantastic time together. And guess what? This morning she is probably, well, about an hour away from getting onto a plane out of New York City to India. She's going on a 10-day pilgrimage. There again, there's another kid who was exposed to these ancient Hindu scriptures ages ago, is an Episcopal priest, and yet wants to go to India to find these deep roots with the Ramakrishna order in India. And so she's been sending me pictures, and she showed me an Indian couple that have hitched up with her because they're going too. And she says, I feel as if I've got some guardian angels going with me. It's just amazes me how impactful the early experiences are. They have an authority that the rest of our lives doesn't really have, at least in my case. So anyway, thanks for listening, Dr. Tim.
You're very welcome and deserving. Thanks for calling and sharing. I'm going to take advantage of your being here and ask, how are you resonating with the Thich Nhat Hanh Being Peace book that I've been reading?
Well, it's like bomb. It's wonderful. You veered away from A Course in Love or A Course of Love, I noticed, and it seems right. It seemed bumpy this time. It was harder to, somehow it didn't seem the right time, or it wasn't easy to read and get across, and so you've gone away. I don't know if you're going to come back. It's okay with me if you don't, and I don't know how other people feel about it. Thanks for trying it, but I love the Thich Nhat Hanh.
Well, the thing about, and I mentioned this before leaving it, is that I was having difficulty feeling as though I needed to, and wanting to work with the regulatory speech that Dr. Michael Rice likes to talk about, to say in a foundational piece for Dr. Michael Rice, he believes it's part of his mission to help people redefine love as a noun, and remove the patterns of thought and words that come out talking about it as a verb. And I was having such a challenge making it smooth and trying to come back to the point of the lesson, as I had to, I felt compelled to continually rephrase things.
Yeah.
And so the other thing is that my experience of the Course in Miracles and A Course of Love is that the tendency for them both to state things in a question format when really they're just making a statement it was just difficult for me to keep coming back to and sorting that out. And here's the real question. Here, this isn't a question. This is an actual statement.
Yeah.
Here, they're stating the opposite of it in a sarcastic way. And so that was just too much of a grind for me. I think what happened the last time we were doing A Course of Love was that you were reading further along in the book, and you would come across a passage that you had a question on, and we would go back and reread it and do our best to make sense of it.
I see.
And I think it might be that it was in the later parts of that book, and I just started reading from the beginning, which had the difficulty I just talked about. So
well, no, it's good. You find these wonderful things, and they all seem just what we need.
Well, this bless you. This last thing about Thich Nhat Hanh, he has been a very gentle, loving teacher for lots of people in their lives. He's no longer alive right now, but his writings, his teachings are out there, and there are so many people who found his personality, his message, and his style nourishing and nurturing that I felt it's worth, giving it a try here on the Mind Shifters Radio. So, unless you have something else to share?
I don't. Go ahead, Dr. Tim.
All right. Blessings. I will, let's see. If you just go ahead and, I guess I'll just hang up on you, and you should still be on the app, and then you can.
I can mute.
Yeah, but then I won't know if you're deciding to speak up again, right? If you want to make another comment, I don't know how the app would let me know that.
Well, if I mute myself and I feel like yelling, can I just unmute and yell?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
All right, wonderful. Thank you. So we're coming back to the book Being Peace by Thich Nhat Hanh. And he writes in this book, perceptions are perceptions of our body, feelings, mind, nature, and society. We should have a good perception of the oak tree in order to see its Buddha nature, its function as a Dharma teacher, a teacher of life. We have to perceive our political and economic systems correctly in order to see what's going on with them. Perception is very important for our well-being and for our peace. Perception should be free from emotions and ignorance and free from illusions. Now that's a very tall order. How do you get your perception to be free of emotion, to be free of ignorance, and free of illusion? He goes on and writes, in Buddhism, knowledge is regarded as an obstacle to understanding, like a block of ice obstructs water from flowing. It's said that if we take one thing to be the truth and cling to it, then even if truth itself comes in person and knocks at our door, we won't open it. For things to reveal themselves to us, we need to be ready to abandon our views about them. Now, what this is saying to me is what we talk about so often in this work, and we get from Rilke and lots of other teachers that talk about the necessity, the value of learning to live in a questioning state. The value of questioning all beliefs and dogmas, the value of learning to live in this wide open state of observation. Because if we are in the mode of believing that we know what we know, and we know what it means, and we know when we learned it, and how we learned it, and why it's true, from that particular state of mind, no learning is possible. I cannot learn something new. As I've been fond of saying, if I go into a situation knowing what I know, I'm going to leave that situation knowing what I knew. I can't learn something new if I walk in believing I know everything. I know what I need to know. I know where I'm going. I know what I'm going to accomplish. I know its purpose. I know who it is I'm talking to. I know everything I need to know about this person. They are X, Y, and Z in characteristics. They are certain height and weight. They have certain leverage over important aspects of my life, etc. The more I go into a situation believing that I know anything, I know what I know, the less option there is for me to learn something new. And so here's the Buddhist teaching that says, even if a person believes they have a piece of the truth and they cling to it, then even if capital T truth comes knocking at their door, they won't open the door. They're not open to learning something new when they believe they already know. Thich Nhat Hanh goes on and writes, the Buddha told a story about this. He writes, a young widower who lived with his 5-year-old son and loved his son very much was away on business, and bandits came burned down his whole village and took his son away. When the man returned, he saw the ruins and panicked. He took the charred corpse of an infant to be his own child and began to pull his hair and beat his chest, crying uncontrollably. He organized a cremation ceremony. He collected the ashes and put them in a very beautiful velvet bag. Working, sleeping, eating, he always carried the bag of ashes with him. One day, his real son escaped from the robbers and found his way home. He arrived at his father's new cottage at midnight and knocked on the door. You can imagine at that time, the young father was still carrying the bag of ashes and crying. He asked, "Who is there?" And the child answered, "It's me, Papa. Open the door. It's your son." In his agitated state, the father thought that some mischievous boy was making fun of him, and he shouted at the child to go away, and he continued to cry. The boy knocked again and again, but the father refused to let him in. Some time passed, and the child finally left. From that time on, father and son never saw one another. After telling this story, the Buddha said, "Sometime, somewhere, you take something to be the truth. If you cling to it so much, when truth comes in person and knocks at your door, you will not open it." Guarding knowledge is not a good way to understand. Understanding means to throw away your knowledge, and in this case, I'm interpreting this as reading your intellectual knowledge, your thoughts about what you believe and what you think has happened and what it means. That you throw away your thoughts about it and you are in the present moment having a life experience. So Thich Nhat Hanh goes on and writes, you have to be able to transcend your knowledge the way people climb a ladder. If you're on the 5th step of the ladder and you think you're very high, there's no hope for you to climb to the 6th. The technique is to release. The Buddhist way of understanding is always letting go of our views and knowledge in order to transcend. This is the most important teaching. That is why I use the image of water to talk about understanding. Knowledge, intellectual knowledge, is solid. It blocks the way of understanding. Water can flow. It can penetrate anything. So, in terms of knowledge, the way of mastery talks about it, knowledge is the direct lived experience without all of the distorting thoughts. In this teaching, they're using knowledge to refer to the thoughts and the beliefs and the judgments. So, the invitation is to release, let go of your beliefs, let go of your judgments, let go of your thoughts. Understand that they are of very limited utility. Just like we talk about, what state of mind are you in when you're driving your car? Well, if you're really a good driver, you're driving from direct observation. You're not driving based on beliefs about traffic and who has the right of way, and you're driving in a direct observation of who is in the other car, how are they traveling, at what rate of speed, and are they headed in your direction or not. Not thoughts about, well, that person doesn't have the right to be crossing my path right now, or they don't have the right of way. If I'm thinking that way when I'm driving, I'm not the best driver. If I'm just in observing mode and I'm not judging them as right or wrong for taking over my lane or driving at a rate of speed that I think is too fast or too slow, if I'm refusing to go into the thought and distract myself from the direct experience, then I'm a better driver because I'll be driving from direct observation. All all of the teachings that feed into how and why the reality management worksheet, which is the core tool that Michael and Jeannie offer, all of the teachings that feed into how that works come down to I cancel my need to be right. I put my thinking, evaluating, judging mind aside, and I ask to be shown something else. I'm going to respond to the feeling state. I had a negative emotional state or physical state in my system, and that's why I picked up a reality management worksheet. If I cling to my thoughts about who's right and who's wrong, and who should be saying this or doing that, then I'm distracting myself from being engaged in life. And the more I can question everything, the more I can watch my judgments and release them, the more I can soften and breathe into allowance, the more I'm in a direct experiential place of knowing. And my knowledge grows exponentially. My life experience grows when I'm in that state. So Thich Nhat Hanh goes on in his next section titled The Heart of Practice. And he writes, meditation is not to get out of society and to escape from society. Meditation is to prepare for a re-entry into society. Call this engaged Buddhism. We go into a meditation center, or when we go into a meditation center, we may have the impression that we leave everything behind. We leave family, society, and all the complications involved with them. And we come as an individual in order to practice and to search for peace. Thich Nhat Hanh says this is already an illusion, because in Buddhism there is no such thing as the individual. Just as a piece of paper is the fruit, the combination of many elements that can be called non-paper elements, the individual is made of non-individual elements. If you are a poet, you will see clearly that there is a cloud floating in this sheet of paper. Without a cloud, there will be no water. Without water, the trees cannot grow. Without trees, you cannot make paper. And so when the piece of paper is here, the cloud is here also. The existence of this page is dependent on the existence of a cloud. Paper and cloud are so close. Let us think of other things like sunshine. Sunshine is very important because the forest cannot grow without sunshine, and we humans cannot grow without sunshine. So the logger needs sunshine in order to cut the tree, and the tree needs sunshine in order to be a tree. Therefore, you can see sunshine in this sheet of paper. And if you look more deeply with the eyes of a bodhisattva, with the eyes of those who are wide awake, you see not only the cloud and the sunshine in it, but that everything is here. The wheat that became the bread for the logger to eat, the logger's father, everything is in this sheet of paper. Everything is connected. He goes on, the Avatamsaka Sutra tells us that you cannot point to one thing that does not have a relationship with this sheet of paper. And so we say a sheet of paper is made of non-paper elements. For example, a cloud is a non-paper element. The forest is a non-paper element. Sunshine is a non-paper element. The paper is made of all the non-paper elements to the extent that if we return the non-paper elements to their sources, the cloud to the sky, the sunshine to the sun, the logger to his father, then the paper is empty. Empty of what? It's empty of a separate self. The paper has been made by all the non-self elements, the non-paper elements. If all of these non-paper elements are taken out, it is truly empty, empty of an independent self. Empty in this sense means that the paper is full of everything, the entire cosmos. The presence of this tiny sheet of paper proves the presence of the whole cosmos. In the same way the individual is made of non-individual elements. How do you expect to leave everything behind when you enter a meditation center? The kind of suffering that you carry in your heart. That is society itself. You bring that with you. You bring society with you. You bring all of us with you. When you meditate, it is not just for yourself. You do it for the whole society. You seek solutions to your problems not only for yourself, but for all of us. The connectedness of all things. So I'm stepping away from Thich Nhat Hanh's book, Being Peace, and I'm just talking about the way these poetic writers from these different spiritual traditions call us to be aware of the connectedness of all things. You are, as you can hear scientists talk about, you are made of stardust. The atoms that quarks, the energy packets that make up the cells of your body came from stars, to the best of our knowledge about the origins of the physical realm that we call our universe. And, sometimes the estimates vary a billion or 2 years here or there, but one of the ones I've heard most recently consistently is 13.84 billion years since the Big Bang. And of course, every time we refine our telescopes, whether they're radio telescopes or optical scopes, etc., computer-enhanced recombinations of varying energies to create pictures, every time we do that, we get another level of data points that we have to try and make sense of and interpret. And the most recent of these was the James Webb telescope, and it's bringing, a new level of clarity and depth to pictures that we used to have with the Hubble telescope, and the Hubble telescope was, light years beyond or more advanced than the optical scopes before that and the radio telescopes before that. Every time that happens and new data points come on the field, people start to argue and have debates about, well, so does this disprove our current theories of the origin of the universe? Or is there a whole new theory that we have to have about how things began and how they progressed and how we got where we are? In all of that, for the decades that I've been watching science, reading different science magazines and watching the developments, I've never seen a theory that came out that said, really, we're all separate. The essence of all of the data points leads to the connection of things, just like in Thich Nhat Hanh's writing here from the Buddhist tradition, that everything is contained in this piece of paper, because without this, in order for this piece of paper to be here, there had to be sun in the sky that beat down on the planet, that brought moisture, that made the tree grow, that made the wheat grow, that fed the logger, that got the nutrition to grow up and become strong enough to cut the tree down, sell it to a mill, and on and on and on. the interconnectedness of all of us, the ripple effects of every choice. Everything's a choice. And every choice you have is going to have consequences. You know, there's for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. For every kind word you say, there's a ripple effect. For every hurt expression you make, there's a ripple effect. I've been working with people recently who've undergone loss, and there's been a death in the family. And so we talk extensively about, I need my downtime or my alone time. I need to work on myself. And the essence of needing to recover myself and rest and restore and do good mental, emotional work for myself is so that I can have the impact on others that's more respectful and loving. I talk to parents about them being the trunk of a tree and their children being the branches. And if the trunk isn't healthy and dies, the branches don't survive either. So, as we've talked about, so many people have called the internet show over the years and talked about their upset, their negative emotional state, and we try and help every one of them focus on themselves to change their emotional state. Why? Well, because there are people like the Abraham Collective that say your most important creation in any moment is your emotion in that moment. Because, as Thich Nhat Hanh was talking about earlier in this book, he's saying, you know, your perception is so important. So instead of, the Way of Mastery says, cancel your judgments and perceptions, Thich Nhat Hanh is talking about it from the Buddhist perspective, saying, go into your perception without the emotion, without the judgment. The idea of having a clear, accurate perception means you can't be thinking about it, you can't be judging, you can't be holding on to the past. You've got to be wide awake in the moment to be able to see the connection of everything. I think Michael Rice was one of the first ones that I'd heard talk about a Native American practice of evaluating any major decision based on how it's going to affect the next 7 generations in the tribe, in the community. This is another example of the connectedness of everything. And the benefit of it, rather than saying, I know everything is connected, the benefit of questioning how are these things connected keeps me in the mind space of openness with the potential for learning. So, Thich Nhat Hanh continues in the book, Being Peace. He writes, leaves are usually looked upon as the children of the tree. Yes, they are the children of the tree, born of the tree, but they are also the mothers of the tree. The leaves combine raw sap, water, and minerals with sunshine and gas and convert it to a variegated sap that can nourish the tree. So in this way, the leaves become the mother of the tree. We are all children of society, but we are also mothers. We have to nourish society. If we are uprooted from society, we cannot transform it into a more viable, livable, loving place for us and our children. The leaves are linked to the tree by a stem. The stem is very important. I've been gardening in our community for many years, and I know that sometimes it's difficult to transplant cuttings. Some plants do not transplant easily, so we use a kind of vegetable hormone to keep them and help them be rooted in the soil more easily. I wonder whether there is a kind of powder or something that may be found in meditation practice that can help people who are uprooted be rooted again in society. Meditation is not an escape from society. Meditation is to equip oneself with the capacity to reintegrate into society in order for the leaf to nourish the tree. So Course in Miracles says, when you heal, you are never healed alone. Another line from Course in Miracles says, millions yet unborn will benefit from the work you do here today. Every time you take a loving position towards yourself or anyone else, you're extending the creative energy. And as the Way of Mastery in one of the lessons calls us to just pay attention to all the ways we succeed. Our culture wants us to pay attention to all the ways we're off base, to look for the irritations and the upsets and the judgments. The Way of Mastery says, please pay attention. Every time you greet someone with a loving gesture and a smile, every time you compliment someone on their smile or their haircut or their attentiveness to your needs, every time you say a loving word, you're succeeding. You're being the Christ. And the invitation in this work is to step into that more fully, more actively, more consciously on a regular daily basis. Will you accept the invitation? Will you join the rest of society by spreading loving thoughts, loving reactions, loving gestures, tapping into your true nature as love, as this creative energy that is wanting to express uniquely through you in each new present moment? Can you join in the extension of life and love and be loving and be yourself and extend yourself out into the world? Find the rooted center of your being. Find that life experience of appreciating the gift of life itself and extend that to others. That's our invitation. And we're glad you're here. We've got about 5 minutes before Michael and Jeannie are going to start their second hour. Hopefully they'll be live again today. And we're very grateful to Susan for calling and chatting with us earlier. And we haven't had any typed comments yet today, but we are grateful for all of you who are listening. And we invite you to come back for the second hour as Michael and Jeannie get on and hopefully be pinging your phones with another invitation. In the meantime, I will invite you all to come back tomorrow and the rest of the week and remind us all that we come from love. We're made of the stuff that we call love. We actually are love, this energy of creation expressing in form, and everything else is false. So, blessings. Have a wonderful day.